Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to my channel Islam Between the Lines. My name is Farooq. This is my first introductory episode. In this series, we will be discussing some of the causes of our common universal problems of poverty, disease, illiteracy, national debts, disputes, strife in the light of systemic Islam apart from its pack of beliefs. From Islamic standpoint, all those people who are not Muslims collectively make up the non-Muslim world, which is actually composed of so many communities formed on the lines of religion, politics, language, geography, ethnicity, ideology, so on and so forth. The same thing is equally true of the Muslim world, which too has so many sects and subsects in it. Yet it is this diversity of communities and civilizations that lends the variety of colors to the beautiful garden of humanity. Lion is a king in the jungle of animals, otherwise lions alone do not greet each other. Islam exhorts coexistence of communities and actually paves the way for it, that too without making Islamization a condition precedent for the same. That's logical also. It's no big deal to have peace in a family. The real big deal is to have peace in the neighborhood with neighbors of different temperaments and tendencies. Now, as we say Islam, we really mean Islam and not the Muslims. I may clarify that I shall be trying to highlight only those things that have remained out of focus in general discourse on Islam, and I'll be taking you beyond the rituals and their performance optics, thereby ensuring that I do not repeat what others have already said and explained. To follow or not to follow Islam is an individual's personal choice and decision that makes belief non-transferable and very personal to the believer. It's not a thing to be copied or cloned. Nuh alayhi salam was a prophet, but his son was an infidel, as is mentioned in Quran chapter 11 verse 42. When a person becomes Muslim, he or she is said to have received the guidance unto the path of salvation. But that only is not what the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him, has brought for us. Quran says at 3 places that he has been sent with the guidance and true religion. Chapter 9 verse 33, chapter 48 verse 28, chapter 61 verse 9. Guidance and religion are two distinct things. Guidance leads the guided person to paradise in the next life, though it won't avail to any of his kith or kin who might not have accepted the guidance like him. On the contrary, a rule of religion will benefit one and all of those who press that rule into service. That guidance and religion are not synonymous is fairly illustrated by a hadith of the Prophet reported in Jamia Tirmidhi as hadith number 17 in its chapter 32. It says there are two groups in my ummah for whom there is no share in Islam: the postponers and the fatalists. So, those who delay the things and those who just submit to the events as inevitable will not benefit from Islam, although both of them are Muslims and so part of the ummah. This hadith assumes more significance in juxtaposition to the Quranic verse number 96 of chapter 37, which says Allah has created you as well as what you do. Again, the flip side of this hadith is equally interesting. Its tacit yet loud lesson is that those who do not delay the things and who take the events head on really benefit from Islam, even if they are not Muslims. This might be one of the secrets of the enviable success of the West. Differentiation and even separability of guidance and religion are otherwise also quite obvious, in spite of their interrelationship as two components of the same whole. It is really their mutual independence that makes Islam possible everywhere and anywhere. A Muslim can stay Muslim in a non-Muslim country as much as a non-Muslim can stay away from Islam in an Islamic country. Sharia laws by themselves won't make everyone a Muslim if he or she does not like to follow Islam. The word religion or deen in Arabic is used by Allah to denote law of the land. Quran chapter 12 verse 76. Precisely therefore religion means a code of life and is as such indispensable because human society needs regulations for going well. We may choose a divine or a man-made religion or law as we like, but we can never be without one. Every code or religion will have its effects, and Islam is no exception. For its benefit to avail, it is absolutely not necessary for beneficiary to be a Muslim. Here's an example. Towards the end of the fasting month of Ramadan, rich Muslims pay a small head charity for every member of the family towards one-time financial aid to the poor Muslims to fund their Eid celebration. However, the financial value and utility of this aid does not diminish even if the recipient is only a nominal Muslim or the payer has not fasted for a single day of the month. The morsels of charity as food have an inherent quality to alleviate the hunger, no matter if the giver is a Muslim or a kafir. The most far-reaching thing yet declared about the Prophet Muhammad is that he has not been sent but as mercy for the worlds. Quran chapter 21 verse 107. Clearly this means that he has got some mercy for literally everyone and everything in the universe. Now, of all conceivable worlds, the world of non-Muslims taken together is not only bigger than that of the Muslims, but is also more significant because of its size and spread. The world of non-Muslims has its own share in the mercy of the Prophet, that too as the non-Muslim world only, and it is no favor to them from the Muslims. The merciful Allah has sent it for them. Regrettably, the non-Muslims do not know about this precious entitlement of theirs, because we do not tell them. Instead, they are being told to convert to be eligible for special mercy. The withholding of this information is very cruel. The world of non-Muslims is as much entitled to the general mercy of the Prophet as the Muslim world. I'll be trying to highlight this share of the non-Muslims in the mercy of the Prophet. After that, theirs will be the decision to take or leave it without changing their identity in any case. This kind of outreach has become more imperative in our times of globalized interaction among the communities and civilizations, which certainly is good and not a cause for any concern. Before moving on, however, I need to have a few words, especially for the Muslim viewers. We are very sensitive about Islam and would not like to take anything about it just casually. That's really good. So let me recount briefly a story of the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam as revealed in Quran chapter 27 verses 20 to 26. Sulaiman alayhi salam had the ability to understand the birds' languages. Verse 16. The story goes thus, quote, "One day he inspected the birds but found that Hoopoe was absent without any permission. Sulaiman angrily said that he would severely punish Hoopoe or might even slay him if he does not have a plausible explanation for his absence. Soon the Hoopoe came and said, 'I have found out something that you do not know about. And I come to you from Saba or Shiba with reliable news. I found a woman ruling over them, and she has been given abundance of everything and has a splendid throne. I found her and her people worshipping the sun instead of Allah, and Shaitan has glorified their deeds for them and has prevented them from the path so that they are not guided. Thus, they do not worship Allah, who brings forth what is hidden in the heavens and the earth, and knows what you hide and what you reveal. Allah, there is no God but He, the Lord of the magnificent throne. I am not more informed than that hoopoe of the Prophet Sulaiman, peace be upon him. In case you ever find any statement of mine contrary to any verse of the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet, please do take that and trash my statement. I always try to understand a verse with the help of other verse or verses and in the light of hadith. Yet that does not mean I have won over my limitations and flaws. Mine won't be the last word. Only Allah knows the best. Back to our topic of Islam between the lines. For better comprehension of our discourse, it will be useful to keep in mind some fundamental points. It is said that a tree is known by its fruit, as an economic activity is judged by the profit it actually generates. The tree of Islam has also come to be known by the fruit of its Muslims, who at present, unfortunately, are not of the desired quality, even at the bare standards. This is true and undeniable. Yet, there would be a big difference between a botanical tree and the metaphorical tree of Islam. A botanical tree itself bears the fruit, and therefore it takes full blame for any bad fruit. On the contrary, it's the human fruit that grows itself on the tree of Islam. Therefore, the blame for its unsoundness lies on the fruit itself. So while in horticulture a tree is changed for better fruit, here the fruit has to improve itself for right projection of the tree it is growing upon. Another point I would like to clarify is the word kafir that Islam uses to describe a non-Muslim. It's taken as an offensive cuss word, when actually it's a normal descriptive expression. Verse 256 of the second chapter of Quran uses this word for Muslims also, for the rejection of what is not Islam. Kafir is a relative word, like for example, the word native, which applies variably to various persons based on their location at a given time. An American is a native in America but a foreigner in India, and an Indian is a foreigner in America and a native in India. Likewise, a Christian is a kafir for Islam as much as a Muslim is a kafir for Christianity. Similarly, Jannah or paradise is deemed as the ultimate goal of Muslims, when actually it's nothing more than an abode, literally meaning a garden. At the end of the day, all good people in the hereafter will need a place to live in. That place being beautiful, like a garden, is called Jannah in Arabic. In visiting a friend, we go to his home where he lives, but our visit is always for the friend and not for his home. These were some misconceptions hosted by others. We ourselves host even worse delusions. Almost all of us have become hostage to a deep sense of supremacy of the sorts. Enter see, every sect and subsect claims to be superior to every other sect and subsect. And against non-Muslims, all of us assert pretty vehemently our claim to best of the both worlds. All this in the face of Quran openly rejecting any certificate of purification or virtue. Chapter 53, verse 32. Every one of us is brought up in his or her peculiar domestic, socio-political, and financial conditions, and none of us is capable of unlearning his or her past. We may unlearn some lessons of our past, but we cannot unlearn the past itself. Cognizant of this human limitation, Allah declares in Quran chapter 17 verse 84 that everyone performs within his or her shackles. So your Lord knows who is guided to the path. Unquote. The Prophet ﷺ has said that he who hosts even a speck of arrogance shall not enter Jannah, and he who hosts just a speck of faith shall not enter the fire. Jamia Tirmizi, chapter 27, Hadith 105. A man queried that he likes his clothes to be pretty and his shoes to be pretty. The Prophet replied that verily Allah loves prettiness, and clarified that arrogance is ignoring the truth and demeaning the people. If anyone could have semblance of a privilege to brag, it would be none other than the Prophet himself, but he has completely rejected it. According to Hadith number 245 in the introductory chapter of Sunan Ibn Majah, on a very hot day the Prophet ﷺ walked towards Baqi al-Gharqad, the graveyard in Medina, and the people were also walking behind him. As he heard the sound of their shoes, it sent a chill in his body. So he sat down until he made them go ahead of him, lest it should cause a bit of pride in him. This lesson of humility and self-effacement has been perhaps understood well by the Prophet's wife Aisha. The Prophet spent his last days with her only. When he passed away, he was buried in her dwelling. Later on, when Aisha's father, Abu Bakr, died, he was also buried there. At length of time, Umar was critical. He sent his son to request her for permission to be buried with his companions, with the Prophet and Abu Bakr radiallahu anhu. She agreed, saying that she intended herself to be buried there, but that day she preferred Umar over herself. Sahih Bukhari chapter 23 Hadith 146. Thereafter, on his death, Umar too was buried there. Subsequently, Aisha made a will to her nephew Abdullah bin Zubair radiallahu anhu, to the effect that she should not be buried with them, that is, the Prophet and his two companions, in her dwelling, and should be buried with her companions, with the other wives of the Prophet, in Al-Baqi, as she would never like to be looked upon as a better one. Sahih Bukhari chapter 23, Hadith 145. It is the same Aisha guarding herself against the possibility of a shade of arrogance, whose integrity and fidelity have been vouchsafed by Allah Himself in Quran, chapter 24, verse 11. So Islam allows us absolutely no space for vanity or self-importance. It will be in place to add another example here, that of the celebrated Nightingale of Kashmir, Haba Khatun. She was originally named Zoon and lived from 1554 to 1609 AD. Because of her lofty genius, she was bound to be a mismatch for her peasant husband, who divorced her. She rightly deserved to be the partner of the last king of Kashmir, Yusuf Shah Chak, who was soon imprisoned by the Mughal Emperor Akbar in Bihar. Following is the translation of 4 lines from a poem of Haba Khatun. For non-Muslim viewers, I may mention that she is referring to the Quran as the 30 parts that it has, like 114 chapters. Quote, I read all 30 parts in one moment, didn't err in any lower or upper vowel. No one reads a letter of love just once. What shall you achieve with my death? To my little information, she is the only person to have called Quran a letter of love from Allah, and had used this argument before him against death. She seeks longer life to read this love letter again and again. We are discussing humility, and here's a woman whose name was Zun, meaning moon, the celestial body, globally treated as symbol of beauty. Secondly, her intense poetry made her popular and well known. Thirdly, she came from an ordinary peasant family but landed in the royal household as a queen. All these three traits of beauty, intellect, and power should have been more than enough to blow her mind. But Zun dashed them all by choosing the pen name of Haba Khatun, meaning a grain and a woman. So she called herself a tiny woman. Nonetheless, humility doesn't mean being low in worth. Humility means deeming oneself worthless after being actually a lot worthy. In his collection of 40, Shah Waliullah has reproduced the prophet's saying that he who knows his worth shall never be ruined. Chapter 3, Hadith 22. When a person knows his worth, he always strives to increase it. In other words, to know one's worth is actually to keep improving the same. According to Sahih Bukhari, chapter 60, Hadith 57, one day the companions asked the Prophet as to who are the respectable people. He said, those who fear Allah. They said that they are not asking that. He said, among people, respectable is Yusuf, the Prophet of Allah, son of a Prophet of Allah, son of the friend of Allah. They again said, they are not asking that. He said, okay, so you are asking me about the minerals of Arabs. People are minerals. Those who are good during ignorance shall be good in Islam when they understand it. In another narration that is reported in Sahih Muslim as Hadith number 205, in its chapter 45, the Prophet has said that people are minerals like silver and gold. Those who are good during ignorance shall be good in Islam when they understand it. An artless interpretation of these two sayings of the Prophet shows that being Muslim does not by itself add to one's human worth. A non-Muslim dental technician, for example, will not become a dentist if he becomes a Muslim. Nor shall a Muslim dentist become a dental technician if he renounces Islam. Professional skills and knowledge do not come as complementary with the belief. These have to be and must be acquired separately. Therefore, in addition to being Muslims, the Muslims must become good minerals also. In fact, the hadith from the Sahih Muslim has restricted the options to two choices of silver and gold only. So a true Muslim has to be at least a runner-up, if not a topper. Just one more thing before winding up this introduction. My interpretation and construction of the verses and hadiths is simple and artless. I'll certainly delve deep, but only to explore a possible aspect of the meanings, but not to form any extreme view of a point. As per Abu Dawud Hadith 13, in its chapter 42, the Prophet has repeated thrice to emphasize that the extremists are dead. This means that very much like the dead ones, extremists aren't any useful because of their rigidity. That is so natural. The most common chemical compound, dihydrogen monoxide, exists in three forms of ice, water, and steam. Both ice and steam are extremes. Only water is median. And all of us know that neither ice nor steam are usable in daily life. Only water sustains it. Because of their fallibility, both ice and steam can be expanded or compressed. Water can neither be compressed nor expanded. though it can be filled into the container of any shape and size. So, water is principled but flexible at the same time, hence, all that useful. So, I conclude this introduction with my best wishes for improvement in the social media, which afford free global platforms to everyone without any fear or favor. Thank you so much for watching. The next few episodes will be about taxation. Please do watch if you will.